Yes, thank you, PJ. It is time for another edition of the Pair and a Spare podcast. I'm Justin Gaard from The Fan. Hey, can you tell I work for The Fan? It's behind me. It's on my sweatshirt. Also, Dinkytown athletes, Ryan Burns from GopherIllustrated.com and Chip Scoggins from the Star Tribune. We are here thanks to our great friends and partners at Jax Cafe. Make your reservations at jaxcafe.com. And we're taping this on, March 27th, which means we're just a couple of weeks away, guys, from our big event at Jax Cafe. The tickets, I'm told, are flying off the shelves. People are rolling in. I got a text message from someone showing me their cart that they are on their way. They are coming. I won't spoil it, who that person is or who that person is a father of, but we're excited about this. And it's Saturday night, April 12th at Jax Cafe, 6 to 9, I think we're going, Burnsie.
Yep.
And who knows who's going to show up? We don't even really know who's going to show up. Every athlete down there is tweeting about this event. Who knows who's coming? But we're looking forward to seeing everybody a couple of weeks from now at Jax.
I mean, that's where we even got Chip's boy, Coy Parrish, tweeting about this, Chip, I had multiple people at the Gopher football practice ask me why you never show up to practices or bowl games anymore. But if we hear that Coy Parrish is going to be there, now I'm not saying that he will be. We don't know yet. How excited are you going to be?
Yeah, like we got Coy Parrish tweeting about Pair and a Spare. Like, come on, man.
It's full circle.
How could you not get excited about that? Yeah. I said I want a lot of our friends that listen to us to show up, and it'll be a good time. I'll be fresh back from Italy, my trip from Italy.
Good.
So
that's right.
I'll be raring to go, and I hope a lot of people come because it'll be fun to see some faces and a lot of fans that are excited about. I think not just go for football, but go for sports right now. There's a buzz in this town, right?
We're going to talk about it. People can get info on all of this. The Dinkytown Athletes Twitter handle, our Twitter handle, basically every Gopher football player's Twitter handle. You can buy the tickets on Eventbrite, April 12th. Pair and a Spare podcast. A significant amount of the proceeds are going to Dinkytown athletes. So it should be fun. Hopefully the weather is consistent and we're ready. We know about the parking. You get dinner, you get food. It's all good. So hope everybody's out there. Anything else you guys want to add?
I just say, did you see that menu that Bill created for this?
I didn't.
I
didn't even. I don't think I looked at it. No, I don't think I looked at it because I know it's going to be good. I don't need an advanced plan like you. You're like Pete Hegseth tweeting out war plans. I don't need advance notice. I just show up because I know it's going to be good. But go ahead.
What's it like to be the talent, Guards?
I don't have it off the top of my head, but I read through it the first time when I saw it. I was like, man, this is fantastic.
All right, I'll pull it up. I'll try to find it before the end of the show.
Try to find it. Yeah.
The only other thing I'd add is there's a silent auction, plus there's going to be a raffle with some autographed items. So for those of you that do come, hang out with us, dinner, drinks, raffle, silent auction. Should be a heck of a Saturday night.
Speaking of drinks, you guys know this, but my family's in Florida right now. I was with my family yesterday. I will be rejoining my family tomorrow. Nobody needs to know why or even care.
He flew back just for this
episode. You flew there
and
came back?
Yes. Got a basketball game tonight, Chipper.
Big one.
Wow.
We got a basketball game tonight.
That is father of the year material. So you flew down there just to help your wife get the kids settled and everything, and then you flew back, and now you're going back?
Yes, exactly.
Wow.
Serving and giving the Justin Gaard way.
He's gonna holster that one, and that one's gonna come out at the most opportune time, right? When he's feeling real crummy about being a dad or something happened.
Under siege.
Under siege. Remember that time I flew you to Florida and then flew back? So did you take him to the hotel, get the late flight back?
Took him to the hotel. Yeah, played catch in the pool for a couple of hours with the football. Wow. And
heck yeah, man.
Flew back. Had to interview Niko Medved this morning. Have to do this. Have to do the Gopher women's basketball game tonight. And then I'll be back. Yeah, that's
good for you.
There are companion certificates on Delta, a nice perk when you have one of the 50 Delta credit cards. They're good to have to save money, but when you need to change something and you can't, you got to fly down there and then fly back. Why did I bring that up? I don't even remember why I brought it up. Oh, because about 4 minutes from our hotel, there looks like a very festive, very fun bar, and its name, and I was driving, so I couldn't take the picture. The name is Rum Runners. Rum Runners, baby. It's the name of the bar. So I pledge to you because it's right by the grocery store where we had to go get some food last night to make sure they all had their rations, for the next day and a half, 2 days while Dad's not there. I will try to at least get back in the vicinity of Rum Runners to take a nice picture. And then maybe our Photoshop geniuses can put Burnsie right in the front of it.
I can't believe you don't want to even try a Rum Runner from that place. I bet you it's fantastic.
That
We'll
is
see.
outstanding.
We'll see.
Outstanding.
Yeah. So anyway, but to bring this up in a fight, no, it won't matter. It never matters. Right now, the threat of not going to Disney is looming over the kid's head because it was not a productive day yesterday. And I just said, I don't know how we can bring this crew to Disney if we can't even get them from, the whatever terminal we were in at the airport to the hotel. So there's a lot of moving parts.
That is the ultimate threat, where you threaten to take away the Disney pass. Like that's
well, the beauty of it is
10 right there.
There's 3 adults because my mom is with us. Grandma's going to be with us. So we have room to hold people back. If only one of the kids earns the trip to the Magic Kingdom, that's fine. Because Grandma ain't going to the Magic Kingdom. She's going to hang out by herself that day. So, and I don't really need to go either. I've been there.
Oh, you got to go.
Dying to do Space Mountain. That's all you've talked about with me for years now.
Space Mountain. Yeah. No one will be doing Space Mountain. I did that as a
Really?
kid. I mean, it's fine.
You gotta take your kids.
Our kids won't do it. They're not. Maybe the oldest will do it. The middle one definitely won't. I traumatized them a couple of years ago. We went to Universal in Hollywood to see the new Super Mario World, and that was fine. That was cool. But then we noticed there was a really short line at the Jurassic Park dinosaur ride. So let's just hop on this and see what this is about. It's scary. You almost get eaten by a T-Rex a couple of different times. We still have the great videos of my daughter as we have gone down the log chute as the T-Rex comes right over the top of us at the end of a very intense ride. I don't think she's doing Space Mountain after the Jurassic Park incident, as Chip would say. So anyway, but nobody appreciates anything. They have no appreciation. They're all completely spoiled. I'll be lucky if the hotel is intact by the time I get back sometime on Friday. So that's what I'm doing. Yeah, that's what I'm doing. All right. I'd love for people to subscribe on YouTube, by the way. We're on YouTube every single week. Hit subscribe on the pod if you haven't as well. Every once in a while, we get comments on the YouTube channel. They're mostly about, things that Chip has said or things that Chip do, or we need to get Chip some help. This phone thing is a little dicey. Why does Burnsie care so much about spring practice? But then there's this one. This is a long one, so bear with me here. You do it for the family and the memories. I wrote so many of these famous and infamous words on my yellow tablet as I listened to this. Max, what a treasure to have known you since the very day you were born. And Papa and I, you named me Mana in your toddler efforts to say grandma, and the name stuck and I love it. Your old soul essence is the real deal, which is to say it's not a deal. It's who you are and always have been. We're so proud of the ways you are in the world, valuing others. That's why children like you. Thank you to the many mentors and teachers who have accompanied Max on his journey, and to you, pair and a spare gentleman, for having Max on your program. That from Grandma Pierce Brosmer.
Oh,
Pierce
wow. Wow.
Pierce. Do you think Max has seen that? Do you think he's even aware of it?
No, that's why I'm going to screenshot and send it to you, and you can send it to Max. I doubt Max is checking up on his YouTube comments on the Pair and a Spare podcast. But the Pair and a Spare gentleman, I think that's how we have to refer to ourselves from here on out.
Absolutely.
Love that for us.
And thank you to Max's grandma for not only finding us on the YouTube channel, but leaving a comment. So I say to everybody, if Max's grandma can leave a comment and help us out and call us gentlemen, what the hell excuse do you guys have? The rest of you, Pair and a Spare audience. So there you go.
That's right. That was lovely. That's
my grandmother would have no shot of being able to, number one, pull up YouTube, and then number two, actually know how to apply a comment to a video.
Your grandma
Chip just going haywire.
Chip couldn't do it if we got him on YouTube.com.
Right. Nor could your co-host.
Yeah. So anyway, I thought that was cool. I got that this morning, and I wanted to bring that out. And we do not have it for those waiting for a special guest today. You're stuck with us, unfortunately. Our off-season tradition of having a special Gopher Great on our pod has been stopped at 2. We're going to do more as we go along. It's just going to be us today, and we have a lot to talk about, including rev share stuff, money stuff, some spring practice stuff, some recruiting stuff. But we've had a lot of fun with those the last couple of weeks. It's been awesome to hear from Matt Spaeth and Max Brosmer, and give us suggestions on who we should have on, right? Because we should be able to get within 6 degrees of everybody that we should be able to get on this podcast, right?
I mean, between between Chip's Rolodex, Guardsy's Rolodex, and then I would say my Google Calendar, but I want to make sure I have an applicable reference for Chip because he doesn't know what that means. And we can probably find somebody. I'm excited to see if we can get who hopefully our next special guest will be, Chip.
He will come through. He's excited about it. But
all right, good. So we'll do that probably after your Italy trip once you head out, and we'll be off for a couple of weeks. All right, let's get going with the episode. Enough fluff, but come see us, Jax Cafe, April 12th. Link to buy tickets on all of our social media channels. So we'd love to see you out there a couple of Saturdays from now. Are we going to talk basketball? Are we going to talk a little Niko Medved? Chip, you brought up the fact that it seems like a very buzzy time for Gopher sports. Niko Medved obviously announced as, I think, the 19th head coach in Golden Gopher history. And it's, I think, the 4th time that I've been to a Gopher basketball hiring press conference. So, and I've only been around for 20 years covering sports. I've obviously grown up here. I am one of us. Certainly know the history of the program. Went on a rant a few months ago that got a little bit of attention about some things. Niko and I might battle about Williams Arena. We'll see. We'll see how it goes. But where do we want to go with this? What do we want to talk about? Obviously, this was the worst kept secret in Minnesota sports, even joking about it. You know, Ben Johnson gets let go, I think, on a Wednesday night, late into the evening. And by Friday morning, everybody who knows anything is saying Niko Medved looks good for this. And we never heard another name. I was joking, even with Niko, that Burnsie's buddy, RyanJames.com, you want to talk about making his own weather for the hot board. He's just throwing names out. Well, this guy might be interested. This guy was last time. Don't think he's going to get a call. They obviously zeroed in on the Colorado State coach, the former manager under Clem Haskins, the Gopher grad, Roseville native Niko Medved pretty quickly and never looked back. What do we think?
Yeah, I would say sometimes the first choice is the obvious choice, and it was obvious that he was the guy that they had targeted. Much like I think it was, we didn't know it at the time, but Mark Cole wanted PJ Fleck, and that was his number one guy, and he was going to make that happen and was going to wait whatever it took to get him. It is a good hire for many different reasons. I put at the top of the list of the fact that he's been a head coach at 3 places, and he's been a winner at 3 places. He's been to the NCAA tournament. He's won games. It is, what do they call it, sprinkles on a cake, or a bonus to me that he's from here, that he graduated here, that he knows that. I mean, that's extra to me, that they got a head coach with experience who knows what he's doing, who's run a program, who's dealt with NIL. I just think this is a really good hire, and I think the reaction from the fan base, I think relief is probably, I think excitement, but I also think relief that what Mark Cole came up with this coaching search.
I'm just here for the sprinkles on the cake reference. I don't know that I've heard that.
You need icing first. You need icing on the cake first, and then you can put the sprinkles.
That's right.
But maybe the sprinkles are on top of the icing. Yeah. Burnsy.
Chip, I want to know, as an East Metro guy, why are you disparaging, like Mr. Cake Eater, Mr. Minnetonka Edina, disparaging my Roseville man? Well, I will be clear, because I've heard from the Roseville folks, they don't want to claim him. They want to claim the school district, but apparently he's actually Little Canada. Went to Roseville High School, but he lived in Little Canada. Now is a Roseville resident. I have a source of pride. I thought about pulling a Chris Tomlinson and going and finding his parents' house, knocking on the door, and then posting a picture from outside saying his parents have no comment.
Yeah.
I ran that by a few people and got it. That's probably going to be a no if you go pull one of those. But with Niko, I'm just glad that it's unfortunate for that Colorado State team that was so hot to end the year. They lose on the travel, non-travel, whatever you want to call it, buzzer beater. But with the portal opening on Monday, and with the next important date being, I believe it's April 7th, between the judge ruling on the rev share, plus every one of these NIL deals are going to have to go through the clearinghouse, I think, after in and around that date, within 72 hours. Then everything really gets put under a microscope of, we're paying these guys what for why. Like, they needed to get this thing moving. So while it is unfortunate for Niko that they did lose, I think it's a good thing for Minnesota basketball now that they can start to figure out what this roster is going to look like, which I guess good news for them is, we went through this last year with Elijah Hawkins, but I have a hard time believing Isaac Azuma is going to pull one of those.
Mark Coyle would never give you true story, but imagine his swings of emotion in that span of 2 minutes where they hit the three to look like they're going to win it. And now, because he it was clear he was waiting. He acknowledged it. He walked back to the back room and saw Gracie, his daughter. But to then, they lose and it's like, okay, game on. Now it's like, let's get this thing done in the next 15 hours or whatever. So you're right. I mean, the timing, you feel bad for Niko and his players, but the timing from a Gophers perspective was perfect.
Well, imagine had that travel been called, or the shot, which by the way was an epic shot by Derek.
A great shot, a phenomenal shot. Yeah.
Great defense by the Ram too. Whoever the Colorado State, it was just a classic March
Tim
moment.
Duncan was blushing with the use of his bank board there.
Seriously, the angle, the footwork, the whole bit, and I'm from Baltimore, man.
Yeah,
when asked about it, that's epic. Yeah. I mean, that's a T-shirt. I'm sure they've already been printed and sold thousands.
I saw it. Yeah.
What a tremendous comment that was. I'm from Minneapolis and I want to buy one of those. That thing was that's sick. But Kevin Willard, right now, at his next stop, they play Florida tonight. He's just making a mess of every time he's asked about anything because everybody thinks he's going to Villanova, right? And had Minnesota not hired a coach on Monday, I think we all obviously could see the writing on the wall that Niko was going to be the guy. We literally heard nothing about anybody else even being close, but there is a little bit of a tension there. And actually on the Golden Gopher podcast this week, I talked to Niko about that when he's trying to play in the Mountain West tournament and every sign is pointing to him being the new coach. Oh, then by the way, you got to go win these games, and credit to the players for handling it. Credit to him, obviously, and his staff for handling it. Will Wade, the former McNeese State coach, did the same thing, basically. Like, it's not a distraction. We just boat raced Clemson. Now, I know they had to hang on a little bit, but I think everybody kind of knows the deal. It's such a weird, awkward time of year with all the different stuff that's going on. Oh, and by the way, the portal's open right now. And it opened on Monday, and teams are still playing.
Don't you think because college sports has become so transactional and guys are leaving and going, a little of that, like 10 years ago, 15 years ago, we might have made more of that, like, oh, this is really affecting the kids. It's like half these rosters are going to be blown up in a matter of days. So it's like there's not that same feeling like, oh, my gosh, this coach is being mentioned with another hire. I just think it is so transactional, that sport. More so than football, basketball. It is how much are you going to pay me?
Yeah. Well, and
they're all mercenaries.
The kids can leave now. That's the other part. The players can leave now, so it's not as I don't think as cataclysmic for them. It used to be the coach would leave, and there's 12 guys that are just stuck in whatever city, and they're used to movement now too, right? Especially on the basketball side.
Or even I saw a graphic of the Sweet 16 teams, and they have where did these guys start their careers at, and it's like Purdue's about the only one that all five guys started at Purdue.
Yeah,
right.
Duke, I think, had 4, and then every other team is just a smorgasbord. But that's the way.
I looked at that too.
To your point,
Burnsie, I looked at that too. Purdue was the only one, and I think was it Texas Tech that didn't have anybody. That it was like basically they started their career somewhere else. I forgot the school. There was one that
God bless that oil money, Chipper.
Literally everybody on the roster had started somewhere else. But that's I don't even shake my head anymore. That's how it is,
Hasn't affected the popularity of the tournament. They just announced they had record ratings. Everybody's always worried about that. Now, nobody knows who any of these players are. Like we're all winging it, and like I forgot who's Caleb Love play for now. Like he played for North Carolina like 3 years ago.
Arizona.
They're playing Duke, aren't they? Whoever his team is.
Is he in Arizona?
You just
Arizona.
Right.
Yeah.
And so
I have a theory on that, Guardsy. Maybe I'm wrong. I think the bracket and everybody having a bracket leads to the popularity. I would love to see the numbers during the regular season now compared to when pre. Yeah, maybe they're better. I don't know, but there's something about the bracket in March Madness. I think that drives
that's true.
I mean, that's the increasing popularity of sports betting in this world, which I'll do the direct correlation. If those things are up in terms of bracket ratings, it's also because sports betting has never become more and more popular.
That's true. 100%. Yep.
Mm-hmm. I actually saw a little something float around that someone is trying to put together almost like a 32 team tournament in November and December, like invite only with a bracket version of it, NIL related, just to get, to your point, Chipper, some more buzz, because nobody really tunes into college basketball anymore until March. Like, obviously, if you have a good team, you're going to the games, but it isn't like even when I was a kid where you were ready for Big Monday on ESPN to watch the Big East. You were ready for Super Tuesday to watch the Big 12 and the Big 10. Like, none of that exists anymore.
Well, it's funny. When I was in college, like Big Monday, that was the thing. Like we were watching
huge
every Monday, Big Monday, just loved it. And then Tuesday came along, had it. Yeah. They're probably still on the page from what the NBA tried with their the
in-season tournament.
Yeah. I mean, all these leagues are looking at it like, okay, these regular seasons are a grind and people are not tuning in the way that they did. So we got to tinker with some things and try new things to make to break up the monotony, if that's the right word, monotony of the regular season, to get more eyeballs on it,
Yeah. And you don't have the built-in advantage anymore of when I was a kid, Christian Laettner stayed at Duke for 4 years.
Correct.
Right? The Fab Five stayed for 2 together, and then Weber left, and the other, Juwan Howard and Jalen stayed for a 3rd, and then the other 2, Ray Jackson and Jimmy King, stayed for a 4th. You got Tim Duncan stayed 4 years. Came through the Metrodome, got absolutely enveloped by Rick Pitino's Kentucky Wildcats. Just 40 minutes, miserable minutes of being pressed.
I covered Tim Duncan's senior year at Wake Forest.
There you go.
Yeah, when I worked in North Carolina.
And everybody knew who he was by then, right?
Yeah,
it was cool, even for a teenager at the time, 96, something like that. I'm pulling up, and it's, Tim Duncan's here. Yeah, I've been watching him for 4 years. And so you don't have that same attachment to the teams. Now, in that same breath, there's a great article last week, I think, about the coaches. We've all talked about a lot of the old guard has gotten out of sports because of the new ways. Football, we've certainly seen that. Nick Saban's now a television star. Krzyzewski's not there. Roy Williams isn't there. Jay Wright's a television star. Well, you look at the Sweet 16, you've got Rick Barnes, Tom Izzo, Bruce Pearl. And go down the list. You got some old heads that have figured out how to thrive and not let all the newness and the way that they've done it for some of these guys 40 years. Right. A lot of these old heads have kind of stayed where they are. So that's the constant, I think, of the tournament is Izzo's making his 16th Sweet 16 appearance in 27 straight tournaments. And now he's coaching Jace Richardson, whose dad was Jason on his national championship team. Like the old head coaches have figured out how to maximize in the new world, and obviously they're at great programs, so that helps. But that's, I think, the constant of the tournament that we all can look to now.
Yeah.
Well, that's where, again, with guys like Izzo, I mean, they've chosen to adapt, and it's adapt or die on the vine, especially in this world of college basketball where we've all said it, so transactional. The players are, again, I said it earlier, I just call them mercenaries. Essentially, they're 1 year for 90% of them. And God bless if you're at the group of 5 or lower, your best players are gone every single year, and you're going to have to rekindle and get new guys. But it's just, again, that's where, again, maybe it's the old head in me that I enjoy. I hope Isaac Azuma stays 4 years and fans can build that attachment to the kid from Cherry, Minnesota, and they can build. Again, those are the things about college athletics I get romantic about. But I know that I'm a dying breed with that.
Well, I gotta be honest. I don't think I've ever seen a situation like what Niko's facing now, where they have 2 kids on scholarship, Isaac and Grayson Grove.
Grayson Grove, the redshirt freshman.
Because Frank Mitchell is now going to play for Wojbomb out there at St. Bonaventures. I
mean, he basically needs 12, 13 guys. Now they have incoming recruits, right? They have,
but those guys aren't even guaranteed to stay. They have an opportunity to leave. And I was reading Andy Greeter from the Pioneer Press this morning, and Niko said he hasn't talked to him yet. Now he will, but I mean, do they want to come to Minnesota still, knowing that the guy that they committed to is no longer going to be here? What are their options at this point? But yeah, Chip, it's like 85% of the minutes from last year. Essentially, anybody not named Isaac Azuma is going to be brand new for your team.
Well, and here's where they're in, and here's where we can localize this now, because as Chip mentioned, it seems like it's an exciting, optimistic time for Minnesota sports, certainly for Minnesota basketball, because I think for the first time that I can remember, I feel there's a very public pressure on the school, on the administration, on Mark Coyle, on the president, on the Board of Regents, that it's time to invest on the basketball side of things as much as you can to get this program going. For me, this is the first time where a coach got let go and it wasn't universal that everyone was just mad at the coach. There was direct heat on, well, if you would have gotten more money or had more money, maybe Ben would have kept some guys and maybe it would have been a little bit different. Would it have changed everything? Would Mark have still made a move? I don't know. But I think you're seeing with some of the things that Mark has said publicly about how they want to invest in basketball, how the Big Ten has said they want to invest in basketball. This seems like kind of a good time for Gopher Hoops. And I think Jace Frederick wrote it, if not now, when, to get this thing jump-started with all the advantages that they have of being in the Big Ten in this ever-changing landscape.
Yeah, this is without a doubt an inflection point. And I can speak with confidence that Mark Cole feels it. And he knows it. Like, because of revenue sharing, you have to be successful in football or basketball or you're going to die. You just are. I mean, you're not going to be, you have to have successful programs there. You need to be able to squeeze as much money out of those programs as you can. You cannot walk into Williams Arena and see 7,000 people there and think that's going to work. It's not going to fly. They need to be successful in there. They need to have that place packed because it's a trickle down thing. Then you can't sell advertisings for as much. Then your partnerships don't go for as much. Then you don't get parking. All these things. He knows that you have to spend money to make money in college athletics right now. And you cannot think that you can just coach them up. That doesn't work. And so he knows it. And I think the fact that he's worked at Kentucky and Syracuse, he's seen it and understands what basketball means. I know the fact that him being on that NCAA selection committee burns him up to have to pick teams in that tournament, knowing that his program is floundering. And so I get the sense from being around there and talking to a lot of people and talking to him this week that they know you better make a commitment and a big commitment. And I reported a couple weeks ago and he confirmed it that they're going to revenue share with 5 programs. He didn't say which ones, but it's obvious. I mean, people have told me it's going to be football, men's and women's basketball, men's hockey and volleyball. I would be stunned if it's anything less than 85% going to football and men's basketball. I think it's going to be more like 90%. Now you can say, is it 70, 75 football, 15, 20% basketball? I think it's going to be in that range. But I think he knows that those two sports have to be successful and he have to give as much revenue sharing to them as possible.
I hope you're right in those percentages. I would tell you that I'm still working on it in terms of figuring out if what I'm being told is accurate. I know you and I have different sources in the athletic department, but I hope you're right that it is somewhere around 90% goes to football and men's basketball. Now, to Guardsy's point about Ben didn't have the resources, that's true. But I think the unpopular thing to kind of say with this too is I think Ben Johnson could have done a better job with NIL. I think if you talk to people,
that's not unfair. That's not unfair at all. I think that's a fair criticism.
I think if you talk to people in and around that program and in and around the university and in and around the people who know how much money that they actually had in NIL last year, I think they would tell you that they wish there would have been more there in terms of money. But I think you also kind of get to what, how much energy and effort you put in there. So that's where Fleck has done, I think, an incredible job with the donors here, because we know how skeptical this fan base is because it's Minnesota sports. I mean, anything that can go wrong does go wrong, and it has for essentially my entire lifetime since 1991. And while Niko is going to have more resources because of rev share, now whether that number is from rev share specifically, say $3 million, but so is every other Big Ten team is going to have that $3 million extra in addition to their NIL. So I know that Niko is going to be trying to find every dunker he can to try and see if he can get a little bit more money to build this roster, because in this day and age of college basketball, I think if you look at the chart that says who has the most money and who doesn't, money doesn't guarantee you success in college basketball. It doesn't. But lack of money guarantees you failure.
It increases your chances. I've heard from multiple people that basketball boosters, in terms of NIL, were sitting on the sideline to see the direction of what Mark was going to do. And I think Marcus Fuller had in his story the day of the hiring that Dinkytown athletes had their largest giving day for basketball in its history.
Yep.
The day he was hired. So that speaks to it. Now, Mark said his goal is to be top third of the Big Ten in revenue sharing. And people are getting this kind of confused.
And you're saying in revenue sharing for men's basketball.
Men's basketball.
Okay.
Which basically is what he's saying is we want to have a higher percentage of revenue sharing to men's basketball than 12 other teams.
Right.
Now, that's feasible because these other schools have more NIL that they can give. So maybe they have a smaller percentage of their revenue sharing that they give to these sports. You see what I'm saying? It's like it's a tug of war. It's like people think, well, how could they do that with Ohio State? I'm just going to throw out a hypothetical. If Mark said, I want to give 50% of my revenue share into men's basketball, they're going to be number one in the Big Ten because nobody's going to give 50%, right? It's your percentage. What they have to do is get more NIL so it's the pot grows from both parts, right? So let's just say 20%. Well, that's $4 million right there. Is my math? I suck at math. So 20% of 20 million is 4 million, right?
It's just over 4, yeah.
So if 15%, is that 3.5 million? I think, right?
Around there, yeah.
So if you gave 15%, that's 3.5 million. Now you could get 1.5, 2 million. Who knows if people really jump on board? Now you're over 5 million. That's where people are getting confused on how this thing can work.
Well, I hope you're right. I do. I mean, I want to lose 20 pounds in the next year, but like,
hey, I have. Look at me.
You're Mr.
My goal is to
Slim now.
lose. My goal is to lose 20 pounds by Italy, and I've done it.
Like, I hope you're right, and that they are top third in that revenue percentage. I would just say, like, if you're going to do that, I hope that football isn't the one that's going to be taking the hit for it.
It won't be. I think it's going to be the others.
And again, that's where women's basketball and men's hockey and volleyball. Again, I think because every Big Ten school will choose to give, whatever the number is, 4, 5, 6, 7 schools. Now, the ancillary parts of it, which is that final 15% of the money, 20% of the money, for every school in the Big Ten is going to be different. That's where I would imagine Minnesota's men's hockey program is going to see a higher percentage of revenue share than a lot of other Big Ten schools, or whatever it may be.
I mean, a lot of Big Ten schools don't even have hockey.
Correct.
Yeah.
So that's not even something that Iowa or Illinois has to worry about.
Mm-hmm.
But then if you're Mark Cole, do you say, why am I going to devote a big percentage to men's hockey if we can be successful without, you see what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
I would be willing to bet that every Big Ten school is at 85% at least for football and basketball.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
I think the thing we're going to find out when this judge issues the ruling, and the thing I might be most curious about with the context of Minnesota, is every Big Ten school going to give the same percentage, roughly within, say, 3% for football and men's basketball?
I think so.
Like, is that going to be set from the Big Ten commissioner?
You have to, because those are your two moneymakers. Like, you'd be foolish not to, right?
I agree, but I think there's a lot of things that are foolish that happen with all this money that's now coming into. I mean, we're talking about a University of Minnesota program that their athletic budget in the last fiscal year, $150 million roughly. Like, it's as big as it's ever been, and it's only going to get bigger because of the media rights deal. And that's where, with the two buyouts, I mean, where does Mark Coyle get the money? He's got $6-7 million he's paying in the buyout, plus Niko got a raise to $3 million. And that's where I even think the context of that $3 million statement is true, or it needs to be put into context. Ben Johnson was making $2 million. Niko's going to make $3 million. That's great. That's an additional $1 million for the Minnesota men's basketball coach.
But
he went from 18th in the Big Ten to 17th. Like, there needs to be context within all of these statements, I think.
I do wonder, to the point about the buyout, Mark said that in the past, they've had to take out a loan from the university to pay off buyouts. I think they did it with Mace, maybe with someone else. But Mark said they'll pay it. Athletic department, they have the money. They'll pay you the buyouts, all of them.
God bless the media rights money. That's just only continuing to go up.
Two things on that. I do wonder if Niko, if the starting salary is reflected because of those buyouts, and if Mark redoes contracts every year, if he'll get a big bump after 1 year once they get past the buyouts. And Burnsie or Gaard, you made it. Do you know what the jump in media rights is going to be starting next year with this new deal? Because I know they balance the budget, right? And it's not like they have a ton of reserves. Like, where the hell is this $20.5 million going to come from? Now, I know some of the media rights jumps up, but I don't think it's jumping $20.5 million, is it?
Well, I think this past year, and I wish Eric Vigo was here from Gopher Puck Live to correct me if I'm wrong or when I am wrong. I think they were last fiscal year somewhere around like 55, 60 million, and it's supposed to jump significantly, I think, in the next year to like 80-ish million.
According to AI, a quick Google search, in 2025, Big Ten schools are projected to receive an average of $79.4 million to $100 million annually.
So that's where
that's a 79 to 100. That's a big gap, but
yeah,
but at least, but a minimum of like 15 million.
So
yeah, but
I would imagine the athletic department is counting on, say, just for rough numbers here, an additional 15 million to 15 to 20 million that is going to be coming in additional to what they had in the budget, and that's where. I think that's where that revenue sharing money, that's where how you can afford to have the 7 million in buyout, plus give Niko a raise, plus give the assistant staff pool a little bit of a raise. Again, I'm just very curious to see that if and when the judge decides, and if and when revenue sharing gets made public to an extent in terms of what every individual Big Ten institution is giving, I think then we'll actually see if Minnesota is top third. And by top third, I also I feel like we have to clarify that further, Chip. I anticipate them being sixth, not closer to first.
Well, that's it. Yeah. They're not going to be first or second.
But even for where
six or seven, 6 to 8. I mean, yeah,
I honestly don't care. Top third, top half. Just get close. Make sure
you'll be closer. Which I think, if you're a men's basketball fan, is as exciting as it's been, because from talking with people around there were games that Gopher basketball played this year where they were down. Like in comparison to money on the other Big Ten team, they were playing like 4 and 5x. Now, some of that's on the institution, some of that's on Ben Johnson. But now with revenue sharing, and hopefully if Niko can continue to cultivate his NIL here, if that number becomes closer to 2x, then every single night your Gopher basketball team is going to have a shot that this time next year to be playing in March finally.
Yeah, I mean, and that's why I think when I said I get the sense that Mark really feels the urgency to get this right, because how many programs they have? 22?
I don't know exactly.
It's tricky when you count track, because it's, they can indoor and outdoor. But anyways, 5 are going to get revenue sharing.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I'm sure there are other universities that are going to spread it out more, but I think Mark looks at it as, and the institution looks at it as like, okay, we can't be all to everyone. Like, everyone can't get a piece of this.
Right.
He knows they better be good in football and men's basketball specifically, and because those are the ones where you have the highest ceiling to make money. And the nostalgia of broad-based programs, and you still want to do that, but this has become such a big business with the revenue sharing that you have to make money off football and men's basketball as much as you guys squeeze every nickel out of it you can.
Right. And with hockey, they have a unique revenue generator that, isn't crazy money, but it's a revenue generator. And with volleyball and women's basketball, those are your two high-end growth ones. Like if you're doing stocks, like we've seen, I mean, the popularity for both of those sports has exploded, right? The last couple of years. Volleyball probably started before basketball did. And then Caitlin Clark came along, and now, I mean, shoot, I was in, where the hell was I? Springfield, Missouri, and Toledo, Ohio, and they each had great crowds for WBIT women's basketball games. You know what I mean? Like that's revenue. Now, is it ever going to match men's basketball? Probably not. At some schools it might, but it makes sense to invest some money in there too, because you'll get some growth. I think you'll see some returns on that eventually, if not immediately.
I would love nothing more than Gopher women's basketball just be a net even program. And that would be a huge accomplishment for them. And again, I know that there's a big game that Gaards is going to call tonight, but I mean, I think him and I have talked about this. Like, I agree with him that there is no sport in college athletics, I think, that has a higher ceiling than women's basketball.
Right.
And if they give even, say, again, I don't want to put a number on it because then people will run with it. But as Chips reported, and I think he's told you this too, Gaardsy, like, whatever money Don Plitzaway can get in revenue sharing is going to go a long way to trying to get them sustainably in the NCAA tournament. And if you can do that, you can cultivate a young generation of women to really start to fill out the barn.
Yeah, and I've seen it at Big Ten schools. Just in my 4 years, I've seen it grow. I mean, I watched the Caitlin Clark thing go from a cool thing in Iowa where she's just in the corner signing a couple autographs for, a couple of kids. Same thing in Nebraska because they had a lot of local kids that played, and that's a kind of a different animal because they were always selling out because it's Nebraska. And that's just what they do. They just support. I took an Uber ride from Omaha to Lincoln one time, and it was like I was on an Lincoln, Nebraska sports podcast. The driver was locking me up on everything, every sport, baseball, women's, everything. That's how popular it is down there. But even, at Michigan State, the final game of the regular season this year, there was 9,000 people there. Like the whole lower bowl at the Breslin was full for a team that ended up making the NCAA tournament. They're on a good run. But so I think definitely we're seeing that happen. We know the atmospheres in the Big Ten for volleyball are off the charts.
Everybody loves volleyball. That. Yeah. When you look at, and particularly the Big Ten knows it because look at what they've done with their TV with volleyball.
Correct.
Like, I mean, they realize like that is a stock that is, soaring right now. And so, I do think, at least the strategy, what we've heard from Mark in terms of the programs targeted are smart. Now we'll just see what the percentage breakdown is on there, but I think they got the right plan.
What's interesting is that every Big Ten team is going to be in a good position because of the head start they're going to have on the rev share. Now, we might have time to talk about it, but the Big East is kind of a sleeping giant in this. They've been a basketball-only league for a while now. They've got nationally relevant programs, including where the former Gopher head coach Richard Pitino is now at Xavier. Like, they don't have football to worry about. So basically any rev share money that they decide to opt into, they're going to fund it and put it into their basketball programs. Been interesting. Big Ten schools are like, well, that's not really fair. And all the Big East schools are like, oh, we don't care. Yeah, not our problem. Sorry. You're cashing these huge checks. You're the ones that blew this whole thing up and made us have to do this and go to a basketball only league, essentially. The number for men's basketball, if we just want to keep it to that everybody seems to agree you have to be somewhat competitive is $5 million total. Whatever the Yahoo story that Ross Dellinger wrote, where he has the same breakdown, 75, to 85% football at some spots, 10 to 20 for men's basketball. Other sports get the rest. Whatever. So my point is, most Big Ten teams, I think, are going to be around that number, with rev share and NIL. Let's say, when I say most, at least half are probably going to be at 5 million. So my point in this whole thing, go ahead.
No, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt you. I think 7 million is where a lot of them are going to get probably.
Right. So the point of that whole thing is the Big Ten is in pole position because they have the head start with rev share money. When these 1,000 kids go into the portal after every year, they're going to start gravitating towards these, the Big Ten, the SEC, and then obviously the Big East, because they're going to have a bunch of money. My point is, we're going to see a lot of 7-5 basketball seasons, like we saw. And I'm just saying, football seasons. We talked the whole football season on the pair and a spare. That you had the 2 teams or 3 teams at the top, you had the 2 teams, the 3 teams at the bottom. I'm not going to do the math. 12 to 14
6 and 15. Yeah,
were separated by a game or a game and a half. I think that's what we're going to start to see. I think the everybody's going to be good. There's not going to be any bad teams, and that's going to be interesting to see how people react to that. Because if you are a good team in the Big Ten, you're going to the tournament. They're going to expand that, it seems like, to 76.
Yeah.
I just think we're going to see a lot of 20 and 13 teams out of the Big Ten making the NCAAs.
Yeah, because much like you talked to Max Brosner last week, you asked him about guys being at lower levels, whatever, and clearly can play at a higher level. Those mid-major programs are going to get gutted even more than they already are. Because if you're a good mid-major program or a good mid-major player, you're going to get $700,000, whatever money. And I think 5 million is probably the benchmark that you have to be at. I think some will go up to. And we saw, I think Arkansas this year was at 7 million, right?
Everybody agreed 5 mils like to get you at the table.
The cutoff. This is the cutoff. Yeah.
Yep.
And really, I mean, again, I go back to if you, let's say you did 10%. Well, that's 2 million of rev share. That's 2 million. And then I think 15% is more likely. That's 3.5. Well, if you get 1.5 in rev share, which you should be able to do if you're a Big Ten school, easy.
NIL, you mean?
NIL, I apologize. That puts you at 5. So, but if you're it would be hard to be a mid-major, and I'm sure Niko's going to come here just because, but hometown, all that, but that has to factor in your calculus too. Like, hey, how long?
That would have been the first question if I was Niko Medved to Mark Coyle is, what resources are you going to have to allow me to be successful? Because you can be the best coach in the world at this point, but like I said earlier, if you don't have money, you just don't have any shot. Now that's where like a team like Creighton, I think, is a good example within this. I would expect Creighton men's basketball to always have more money, probably, than the University of Minnesota men's basketball team because of that revenue share. Now they also are able to cultivate a heck of an NIL. It's their only thing down there is Creighton men's basketball.
Right.
Whereas again, the unique part of this market with 4 pro sports teams, yada, yada. But that is where the Big East is going to have the advantage. If they're going to be able to set a higher allocation of whatever their revenue sharing money is towards, you don't think Pitino's father out there at St. John's is going to be advocating for every last dollar?
Oh, yeah. I mean, he's got his billionaire buddy that's basically his right-hand man out there. Because someone asked me, is Xavier really that big of a step up from New Mexico? I said, yeah. Historically, number one, they go to tournaments all the time. And number two, they're in the Big East, which means they're going to be funded. And that's as critical as it's ever been, as we know, as we've talked about a million times. So anyway, it was I do, like you said at the top, Chip, it feels like a good inflection point. And let's see where this thing goes now. Like there does seem to be some wind at the sails of really both basketball programs for the first time in a while that you can point to and say, everybody tells me how the Barn's a great place when it's full. First of all, every building's great when it's full. I've never been in a full building and been like, this building sucks. They're all good when they're full. Yeah. The point is to fill them. And it seems like there's, finally some positive momentum and alignment, to use one of our favorite 2025 words, from the top down, that it's time to get going on this thing. Like they've let it kind of languish enough, whether it was, not getting the practice facility in time for Tubby, like he was promised, the stuff with Richard, and obviously with Ben, we've talked about that a lot, a terrible time to come in and be a first-time head coach and have all this stuff change. And he wasn't the most dynamic fundraiser. We've talked about that. And that hurt him in the end. But now it seems like everything's kind of been level set here, and let's move this thing forward.
And I just realized my math has been off. I've been thinking 15% is obviously 3 million, but I've been thinking, I bet they come in around 17. In my mind, I've been thinking 17 or 18%. That'd put them at 3.5 million.
All right. We'll take it.
That seems reasonable, right? 17%.
It all depends upon what those final 3 programs get, because I will refuse to accept anything less than 70% for the Gopher football program.
It won't be less than it. Well,
I bet it's 75.
I bet it's 75, and then if you do 17, 18 for basketball.
Yeah, and again, that's still millions of dollars to disperse between those final 3 programs, which can give them, every little bit counts. Every little bit does. So again, we'll see what the judge rules here in a few weeks. Then we'll see because none of these revenue sharing payments for folks wondering when do kids actually start to get paid by the university, I believe is July 1st at the earliest, as we sit here in time.
Yeah, July 1.
So you're not going to know yet for another handful of months who is getting paid what, yada yada, what the split is, and then we go from there.
But those athletes are signing MOUs, like. They know what they're getting.
Memorandums of understanding
for those
memorandums of understanding.
Like I think Coy Parrish and Darius Taylor have signed MOUs. This is what you're going to get when it goes in. So they
have had those conversations.
You have great understandings. They have great understandings. They all understand everything.
Yeah.
In our final couple of minutes here before we head out, Burnsie, you've been locked in at spring football. You're very excited. You got the dates on the calendar. You've been out to practice. You talked to PJ. I don't know who else you've talked to. What have the headlines been from spring football that we need to address or cover?
Yeah, I'm so blessed and highly favored to be able to talk to the head coach for the first time in 75 days at Pro Day. Be able to ask him about things like Corey Heatherman leaving, Danny Collins. Bitter. I'm so negative.
Yeah, you're just so bitter. What were you going to
say? This it's an interesting football team, man.
Yeah,
like they are it's very new, and that's where, again, no Brosmer, no Daniel Jackson. No Ariante Ursery, a brand new offensive line. Defensively, what does Danny Collins do with this thing? Because you're very top heavy on the defensive line with Chip Sky, Anthony Smith, Devin Eastern, Jalen Logan Redding. Like, there's just a lot of new faces and new bodies, which is the day and age of college football. And that's where I also think, again, I've only seen one practice so far, but that's where I think I get the sense of looking at like the latter half of the roster, the back half of the roster. There were guys going harder than I've seen on the back half of the roster because the 105 is looming.
Sure.
And
good point.
Remind people what the 105 is.
Teams have to be, or football teams have to be at or underneath 105 bodies on their roster by the time they start fall camp. And considering that Minnesota, like any other Big Ten institution, is going to be bringing in, say, 10 to 15 high school kids in the summer who have already signed, but they'll enroll, you're already at like 115 right now, which means there's going to be another 15 guys probably that hit the portal here after spring ball. So if you want to have a chance to get some of that revenue share money, get some of that Dinkytown athletes money, welcome to the day and age of you need to perform or else you might be on the proverbial cutting block.
It's interesting. I've talked to several Division II coaches in town from NSIC in the state, from NSIC. They think their product's going to get even better because they think that trickle down from kids that were, Division I or at that 105 cut are going to look for a place to play. And so they're anticipating getting some pretty good players coming into their programs.
Well, that's where I feel for it. It's never been tougher to be a high school recruit. If you are like and again, if you're going Division I at any level, you're in the top 1%. Like, not all of us can be Justin Gaard. I understand that, being an elite Big Ten level athlete.
Yeah.
But because so many,
some of us are built.
You often tell me that.
Not good enough to make Chip's class of 2001 article.
I know. Not Mount Rushmore, but
yeah, no Mount Rushmore.
You're not bitter about that. This is the first time I've heard of it.
Yeah, you're right. It's amazing. It's too bad.
Like, if you're a Missouri Valley coach or you're a MAC coach or you're Northern Sun or the MIAC, you're not taking anywhere close to as many high school kids as you've taken 5 years ago, 10 years ago, because the portal is going to giveth to you from the upper levels down of kids that sign a Big Ten and then go down to the Northern Sun, go down to the Missouri Valley. The kids who didn't work out at the Missouri Valley can go down to the Northern Sun to the MIAC. Like, I feel for high school kids because it feels like to me like 30% less scholarships go out that are than what it used to be, but that's just the portal day.
It's particularly those kids that coaches might have previously said, you know what, we'll bring them in, we'll develop them, give them a couple years. Those days are over, right? Like, you can't look at it that way anymore. Unfortunately, I mean, those kids that are on the edge, just not quite there yet, and maybe in a couple years, I think coaches now say, well, I'll just go find somebody in the portal that has experience.
That's where it's like, if you're a high school kid and you sign, you get like 2 years. So you get to be like redshirt sophomore, and then it's, are you playing? Are you close to playing? What does it look like? What doesn't it look like? Because, I mean, if you haven't played by that time too, at that stage of your career, again, you were probably the best high school kid in your conference. You want to go play somewhere. And that's where I think you're going to see a lot of, I guess, mutual decisions with stuff like that coming up. But that's even with this Gopher team. There's just so many new faces, new names. But it's very noticeable. I mean, there was a point at Tuesday's practice where Fleck had to stop it and be like, guys, we're going to thud, not anything more. And if you continue to do something like this, I'm going to throw you out of practice. Now,
I love that.
You always want to have to turn it back than dial it up. I think any football coach would tell you that. But I think it's been noticeably more competitive because I think everybody knows if I want to be the 7th corner or the 6th corner, I got to show my worth here in spring ball.
There's one more portal window after spring ball, right? In April for football?
April 15th, I think.
Yeah, so that makes sense.
So, Burnsie, will they cut that 105 when they finish the end of school year? Because you're not going to bring kids back and then cut them at the end of fall.
No, I can't see them cutting guys in the summer. Right? I think you're going to see, because they know how many freshmen they have coming in this summer. So you have a general idea of what the number is you got to cut down to. And that's not even factoring in, by the way. Like, they have some holes they need to fill too, I think. Like, if they add another 3 portal guys, that's another 3 guys on the roster right now. Now, I will say Notice I said 105 bodies, not 105 scholarships. And that's where I think the 85 scholarship thing is just going to go away, especially in the day and age of NIL. But I mean, there's going to be tough conversations for every single program across the country at the Power 4 level that you're going to see a giant influx. Like, as I think as many players that entered the portal in winter are going to hit it in the spring, and the spring guys, I don't know, are going to be thrilled about that. But Chip often says the truth cannot be controversial.
Lastly, Burnsie, a big recruiting victory. Speaking of high school recruiting, a big recruiting victory for the Gophers on Wednesday night. What should we know?
Yeah, they got the number 1 kid in the state of Wisconsin, a kid by the name of Gavin Meyer from Janesville. I think Guardsy would tell you that's just west of the Dells.
I spent a week, speaking of tennis, I spent a week in Janesville, Wisconsin 1 year, the Western Open, when I was 14 years old. Yeah.
I think
lost
you told me
in the quarterfinals. Let me pull out my yearbook here. I'll show you.
Well, you said in the pre-production meeting you lost 6-1 and 6-2 to some guy who went off to greatness, right?
Yeah, there was a kid. The kid that won the tournament actually went to play for Purdue. I do remember that. Yeah, that's crazy what you remember.
10 level athlete on Big Ten level athlete. And again, you couldn't get the Star Tribune to talk about something like this?
I can't believe Chip wasn't there in Janesville that day in 1996. It's weird what you remember. I watched the 1996 Atlanta Olympics from that Janesville hotel. I was there a long time. You don't need to spend a week in Janesville. I'm just telling you. Muncie, Indiana, I've also spent a week there. I've been to some places. So when I go to Springfield for the WBIT, nothing really phases me, or Toledo, Ohio. But anyway, tell us about this Janesville kid.
So what was your favorite south of Madison moment in Janesville? Was it that tournament?
Yeah, probably. Yeah, that's probably about it. I can't remember anything else off the top of my head.
So they already have, I think, the 2024 number 1 kid in the state of Wisconsin, Nathan Roy, who's competing at left tackle for them this year, played some in the bowl game, and now you're able to go in. And that's where Wisconsin is an interesting place right now.
Speaking of inflection points,
I mean, that
they're at one too.
Yeah, I feel like we could spend 15 minutes on a program that has a 5.5 win total, which if they hit the under on that, I don't know that Luke Fickell is going to be employed there in 9 months, but that is a brutal schedule. 3 of the top 4 kids in the state of Wisconsin are committed to other programs not named Wisconsin now. And that's where Gavin Meyer picked up an offer from the Badgers last month, visited there a couple of times this month. And then as he spent a couple of days in Nickytown this past week, decided that he wants to come join Nathan Roy. So I understand that Wisconsin football isn't what it was, but you guys know better than I do. When was the last time you could say a Gopher football coach went into the state of Wisconsin and 2 of the last 3 years got the number 1 guy?
I mean, has that ever happened?
I would say never, probably.
Right.
But yeah, you're right. That
Gary Alvarez got there.
Internally with their fan base in there, they're probably thinking, okay,
it's a big year for that program. I'll tell you
where's
what.
this going? Like, where's this going? Like, I always, when you have those programs, and it's just probably not the right way to, or maybe too simplistic, but sometimes you just look at a program or a team or an organization, you're like, okay, where is this going? Like, what's it leading to? You know? And if you just ask yourself that simple question, it's like, okay, we need to ask some hard questions here, because, like, where's this trending to? I don't see where this is going, you know?
Right.
And it can turn around, you know, programs can turn around, you never know. But I'm guessing there's a lot of self-reflection going on in that market right now with what's happening.
And that schedule is brutal. I will say again, for the Badger fan that finds it's like
they have no momentum building spot. Where's your momentum builder here in 2025? Yeah. Like, there's not. Unless they're really good, unless they've crushed it in the portal and the quarterback's good, and then they rattle, because that's happened before too. We thought one year, I think Wisconsin opened at Lambeau with LSU, and I remember talking to people like, I don't know how they're going to win a game in the first month of the season. Well, they won all of them. They went undefeated that year. So that's how you build your momentum. But it's going to be interesting. It's going to be interesting to watch where that goes. But yeah, it's a big recruiting victory for PJ. So where can people read more about that? There's a website called gopherillustrated.com where they could find all about the now top 25 recruiting class Flex got going here early on, which, hey, see how it continues to go. Does the Pair and a Spare podcast ever get any mentions on the Gopher Illustrated message board? I don't spend a lot of time there. Do we ever get do we ever get promoted here or anything like that? Do you
That'd
know?
be a no.
Does anybody pump up the Pair and a Spare podcast so we're here as much as possible talking Gopher sports? Does that make it to the message boards? Does the moderator ever?
My message board is now. My message board is, how do I want to phrase this? My version of the salary pools. It's made it there the last couple of times. People are very excited. I had a couple of people come up to me at the spring practice on Tuesday, and I will say they loved the Spaeth episode. They loved the Brosmer one.
So
they love being able to take a little bit of a trip down memory lane, which I know Guardsy hates narratives because he's a big media guy, but
yeah,
a lot of good storytelling out of Uncle Chip.
Well, I would say both those guests just had phenomenal stories, right? And insight. Like that's the stuff we're not getting on a press conference for 10 minutes with the guys. Like get them in here and hear the stories and kind of
we'll have
how
more
they're wired. Yeah, we got some up our sleeves.
We got more. We'll talk to people about it on April 12th at Jax Cafe. We'd love for you to see us as we put a lid on this. Go to jaxcafe.com to make your reservations to dine on your own. Brunch season is right around the corner, obviously, and we'd love to hit that patio, but we're going to be there April 12th. All the info on the Pair and a Spare Twitter handle, the Dinkytown Athletes Twitter handle. Very easy to get it all going, but we'd love to see you on April 12th at Jax Cafe. Anything else, guys? Heart out. Let's get out of here. Chip, travel safely. We look forward to the stories. Good luck.
We'll have plenty when we come back.
I love it. For Ryan Burns and Chip Scoggins, I'm Justin Gaard. This has been the Pair and a Spare podcast.